I'm Sarah.
And I'm Emily Ann.
Welcome to our kitchen today. It's an exciting day as we unfold one of the scariest things that most people think about when they come to the kitchen, and that is bread making.
Oh, we are in for such a huge treat. I have never made bread before, and Sarah is a pro. So if you want to know how to make homemade bread, just keep watching. Welcome to Simply Made.
Most people are really intimidated when it comes to baking bread, and we're going to go ahead and get it in our mixer. Now, sometimes people use bread hooks, which you totally can use, but for right now we're just going to use a plain mixer attachment here on the good old KitchenAid. So Emily, let's go ahead and get started.
All right.
I'm going to have you help me. I'm going to go ahead and pour this in.
Okay.
And next we're going to add the rest of our sugar.
Okay.
And then we're going to add our oil, about 1/4 of a cup of oil.
So you just have it on like one of the lower speeds?
Just a low speed. And then we're going to add just a little bit of salt.
Okay.
About 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So when you add flour, every bread recipe is different, and you're just going to kind of have to eyeball it and practice a little bit. And usually with this recipe, it calls for about 5 to 6 cups. I've made it before where it's taken exactly 5 cups, and I've made it where it's taken 6 1/4 cups. So you just have to get ready to be flexible. You add 1 cup in at a time.
Okay.
Never add your flour in all at once.
I feel like that's a reoccurring theme in the kitchen. You know, it takes trial and error, you know?
It really does.
So you just got to find out what works, and it's all about practicing.
And it's okay to make a mistake and have to do a new recipe 3 or 4 times before you get it down. And it's just about having fun and enjoying being in the kitchen.
Yeah. So I know that you have said your mom is like the expert of bread baking.
She's such a good bread maker. She grew up on a farm in Missouri, and they really made bread a lot in her family. And I think bread making is something that was passed down probably for generations with her family.
Wow.
And she is a really good bread maker. Her cinnamon rolls are the best cinnamon rolls I've ever had in my life.
You shared one of her cinnamon rolls with me. It was so good.
It was so good. But yeah, growing up, being so far out in the country where we are, you don't always have the chance to go to town every single day, you know, so like when you make a grocery list, you make a list that'll last you for a week because you might not be in town for a while.
So when your mom does her cinnamon rolls, does she use this as a base, or does she have a different recipe?
She uses a different recipe, and her recipe actually has mashed potatoes in it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so her recipe calls for mashed potatoes, and that's one of my favorite breads to use when you make cinnamon rolls. It's a little bit more complicated than this one, but for a beginner bread maker, this is a perfect recipe to start with.
Awesome.
Now you see how it's starting to stick to the sides of the mixer?
Yes.
That's what you want.
Okay.
That might about do us. When it gets tough, that's a good sound. Might give it a couple more stirs here in a second, but let's check. So when you draw it away with a spatula from your beater bar like this, if it sticks to your beater, that's exactly what you want.
Okay. So that's how you know you've got enough flour.
It's doing real good. In fact, I think we're going to stop.
Well, that's not hard.
It isn't
But
hard.
it is, like, it seems scary when you think, like, making homemade bread.
It does seem scary to a lot of folks, but it doesn't have to be hard. Now, it's also really neat because you can substitute this recipe with a lot of different things. So if you are gluten intolerant, you can substitute your flour, and you can substitute the flour for something else too. If you wanted to use like an almond flour, or you could use a whole wheat flour if you want to go hardcore whole wheat bread.
Okay.
So this recipe is really, really flexible.
Awesome.
There we go. So we're just going to scrape it off the sides.
All right.
One of my best memories growing up is homemade bread in the kitchen, and just the smell that homemade bread makes. You can smell it clear out in the yard when Mom's making bread.
Oh, I love it.
Okay. So it's real sticky and gooey. That's what you want.
All right.
So we're going to take the flour over here too, because we might have to incorporate some of the flour into the bread as we knead it.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about kneading, because kneading bread is very important too. In fact, I think it's probably as important as proofing your yeast correctly with the right temperatures. Kneading bread isn't hard. You just have to know how to make it feel right in your hands. So when you knead bread, you can overwork it really easily, and you don't want that. Overworked bread is going to taste real tough.
Okay.
You know? And you don't want tough bread, and it won't rise the same either. It's tough. Okay. So with kneading bread, you want a really well floured surface. I mean, like flour everywhere.
Okay.
And as you knead it, a lot of people make the mistake of using their fingers when you knead, and
Okay.
you really don't want to use your fingers. You want to work the dough so that yeast is activated and you get a good rise. So my mom, when she taught me how to knead bread at first, I was probably terrible at it at the beginning. She uses this part of your hand right here. So you want to use that part of your palm, and you go forward, back, and you roll it, and you keep that flour on your board incorporated into your bread.
Okay.
So like that. So we're going to knead this bread for 7 minutes. It's going to seem like an eternity.
7 minutes?
Yep. And you do it by hand. Don't try to do it in the mixer. It won't work.
So you just that over and over.
Yep.
Well, you make it look so simple.
So I'm going to have you knead it.
Oh,
in
no.
a second. I'm going to get it really going here.
Okay. So it's definitely not sticky anymore at this point.
It is not sticky. I mean, it sticks to your hands a little bit, which is what you want.
Okay.
But it should not be sticking to the board.
Okay.
See, so right now it's probably about a minute.
Okay. And this is activating the yeast in the bread.
It is. It's giving the bread texture. You want to activate all that yeast and let it grab that sugar and flour just the right way. Okay, Emily, your turn. So get your hands a little floured on, otherwise it might stick a little. And you're just going to use this part of your hand.
Like this?
And push forward, just like you're rocking a baby. The bread is your baby. There you go. And then fold it over.
But don't use my fingers.
But don't use your fingers when you fold it over. There
I've
you go.
already messed up.
No, you didn't mess it up. So just start over. There you go.
So don't use my fingers when I fold it over.
Just let it kind of flop on over. There you go. That's great. And now gather it up again. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Sorry.
Now gather it up again. And keep your ball as round as possible and just keep pushing forward. Yep. There you go. Let's get some more flour on there.
Okay.
Great job.
Oh no.
You're doing awesome.
Need practice, y'all. This definitely takes practice. Sarah made it look so easy. Okay, so hold on. So pull it over.
Yeah. When you pull it over, you just keep pushing forward with the palms of your hand. Yep, there you go.
And then just kind of form it back into a ball a little.
There you go.
I don't want to ruin it.
You're not going to ruin it.
Mine's getting a sad face.
That's why we call this never fail bread. You're not going to ruin it.
If you guys could see this, it looks like 2 eyes and a sad face. You go. Let me learn just a little bit more.
Well, we got just a couple minutes longer of kneading it, and then we'll be set.
Okay, so you just pull it in from the sides to form it back into a round ball.
Yep. And like when you want to make dinner rolls with this, you can. One of my grandma's ways of doing dinner rolls, she called them cloverleaf rolls, and she would really take her time and put them into 4 little balls and pinch the balls together, and then put them in cupcake tins, and they would form these perfectly little sculpted clover leaves.
I love it.
So you can do that with this recipe. You can make just plain old bread loaves. This recipe will actually make 2 small loaves of bread.
Okay.
So if you're making some for your neighbors, this is a great recipe because it really does go a long ways. Okay, I think we're done. Okay, so now that we are done kneading the bread for 7 minutes, we're going to put it in a bowl for about an hour while it rises.
Okay.
And with your bowl, you want it to be in a warm place. So if you have a sunny window, put it in front of that window in the sunlight. At home, when I'm doing it, I put it in front of the fireplace or in front of the wood stove. And the warmth from the stove, you could even open your oven door if you want to leave it in the kitchen and just warm it up a little bit. But if you have a cold house, it's going to take longer for your bread to rise. So if you have a cool house, it's going to take longer than an hour for it to rise properly. But today we're going to let it rise about an hour and put it in a nice sunny window. So
Perfect.
Let's go ahead and oil this pan up.
Let's do it.
It's perfect. Yep.
Did I do too much?
Maybe a little bit, but we'll pour it out.
This is my first time bread making.
You're doing it amazing, Emily.
All right. We'll fix this.
There, perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay,
Awesome.
so we're gonna really grease that oil in the bowl. Okay, and then you're gonna take your bread
Drop it in
and drop it in.
and just leave it.
We're gonna leave it there. One thing that I do that Mom also does when she makes bread is she wets down a tea towel. So if you have a flour sack tea towel in your kitchen, wet it down under the sink until it's damp. Make sure it's not dripping or anything. And then cover it with that damp tea towel, and your rise will happen faster. So let's go put it in front of the window.
Let's do it.
Okay, so our bread has been rising for about an hour.
All right.
And it's looking really, really good. This is a fun part too. So you go ahead and take it out. You're gonna put it on the breadboard and you're gonna punch it like that.
Okay.
And what that does is it creates a little less air. And so what we're gonna do is keep kneading it for about a minute, and then we're gonna put it in our pans.
All right, so you just
So,
split them apart?
We're gonna split these apart, and I just kind of eyeball it. I don't necessarily get it exact.
Okay.
And I like to make pretty loaves of bread, so you don't want to just dump it in there. So I go ahead and like roll it out so that way there's no big old cracks or
Okay.
seams in it. You want pretty bread. At least I do. I want pretty bread.
That's amazing. So the bread kind of just does all the work itself,
does.
and you just
So I pinched it down there. And see, I still don't like those edges. I'm going to roll it just a little bit since we're putting it in our loaf pans. That's better.
yeah, that looks pretty. Just drop it in
We're
there.
going to drop it in there, and the same thing with the other one.
So are these ready to go in the oven now?
They are not. So it actually requires one other cycle of letting it rise. So
Okay.
we're going to put them in the loaf pans. Or if you're making rolls, this is the time that you just let them rise one more time. And so you'll go ahead and roll it into a ball and slice it to make your cinnamon rolls. And if you're making dinner rolls, then you go ahead and roll them into balls and pinch them together like that.
Okay.
If you were making dinner rolls, you're going to take your kneaded half loaf here. You're going to take your index finger and your thumb and you're going to pinch off about that much. And you're going to keep folding it over until you get a really pretty roll. You don't want the yucky part, the bottom showing with all the seams and everything.
Okay.
And you're just going to keep rolling it over like that.
She makes this look so easy.
And there's your dinner roll.
Sarah, that's so cool.
So then you would just put them in and let them rise that way.
Okay.
But today, we're not doing that. So I'll go ahead and put that back in there. But just so you know, it's very easy to make homemade dinner rolls. So if you're having a family dinner over, this recipe will make about 24 dinner rolls.
Oh, that's great.
It's a good big recipe. There we go. All right, we're ready to go.
Okay.
I use wax paper in my loaf pans. You don't have to. You can put them in just a greased loaf pan, but I like the safety of using wax paper, and that way it doesn't stick to your bread.
Okay, perfect.
So now we're going to let these rise for about 30 more minutes, and we'll come back and check on them. So Emily, one of the key ingredients is bringing your keys into the kitchen.
Okay, well, let's bring them in here. If that's what we got to do to make good bread.
That's right. We got to sing to the bread, so let's go.
All right, let's do it. I love hearing you play piano, Sarah.
Aw. Well, I love singing with you. It's always a pleasure, always so much fun. Let's do a little bit of "'Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus."
Oh,
I love
that.
that hymn. Well, that was really fun, Emily. Thanks for singing.
Oh, thank you. We hope y'all enjoyed it.
Yeah. So we've got our bread out of the second rising stage, and we're ready to put it in the oven.
Let's do it. All right, so how long do they bake for?
So they're going to be in there for about 35 or 40 minutes.
All right.
I usually set my timer for 35 and check on them and watch them and just make sure that you don't get them too brown. Keep your eye on them because every oven is different and every loaf of bread is different. So the time has come, Emily. We're gonna get our bread out of the oven finally.
Oh, I'm excited.
Let's go see what it looks like.
Oh, Sarah, it's beautiful.
It's so pretty.
Oh, it looks so good.
And the house smells so good right now.
I'm amazed. They rise up so beautifully.
They really do. And even if you're not a bread maker, you can do this. Here's our first loaf.
Oh, I wish that they could smell this.
And our second loaf. So it is a pretty good size recipe.
That makes a great sized loaf.
Yeah, so you could even put one in the freezer if you would like to make a loaf ahead of time.
Okay, awesome. So you put the dough in the freezer, or you put the actual baked bread in the freezer? Okay,
right.
Good
Yeah,
to know.
you'll have to go ahead and bake it. And yeah, you could put it in the freezer, and then especially with dinner rolls, they're really easy to freeze. So you could take out the whole pan of dinner rolls, put them in the freezer, and warm them up when the company comes.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's get these out. I wanna
Okay.
try-
It looks amazing. And I brought a special treat for us today.
Oh!
This is some strawberry jam. I picked strawberries and made some jam out of them. And
Sarah.
to me, there's nothing like picking strawberries and the taste that it comes through. Like when you make a jam from a berry that you picked, there's nothing better.
She is telling the truth. There's nothing better. She gave me a jar of strawberry jam maybe a year ago,
Yeah?
and it was the best strawberry jam I've ever had.
Well, you're very kind. All right, so while it's still hot, we're gonna...
And it's nice and soft.
It is nice and soft, and I really like this recipe because it comes out just perfectly almost every time. Let's get some butter on there.
Well, why would you ever buy bread again?
I know.
This is so neat.
It's so easy and it's so fun. And it really, even though it takes a few hours, you can do some laundry while you're letting it rise and let it go and come back to it later if you want. So let's get some
let's do
jam.
What a treat.
These strawberries were so beautiful when I made this jam. I sent a picture to my mom and she said, "Oh, Sarah, they're almost too pretty to cook." They're almost too pretty to boil down. They were just like picture perfect. All
Okay,
right.
That is picture perfect.
Let's do it. Homemade bread, homemade jam.
I'm so excited.
Here we go. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh my
So
goodness.
good.
It is so much better. You always say so much better than what you can buy in a store, but this,
It is so much better. It's
I'm
delicious.
shocked. It's incredible.
So even making bread can be simple and no one should be afraid of it because it comes out almost like this every single time. It's very, very easy and there's nothing like homemade bread.
I love it. Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to show us all your incredible recipes and tips and tricks. We hope we've encouraged you guys to get in the kitchen and make some stuff for yourself. We'll see you next time on Simply Made.